What makes Katie different? First of all, she laughs at all of my jokes. Not a lot of people do that. I don't know if it's just, feels bad for me out of the kindness of her heart, but I think that it just brings joy to anyone she's around. Another thing is that she's very loyal. She definitely takes care of her own people and makes sure, we're all good. And when in college, your friends are everything. So number 3 would be she's very creative. I've seen her design work and her branding work, and all of it's just so awesome. She definitely is on the right path. Katie is also very strong-willed. When Katie has something in her mind, she's gonna do it. When she's made up her mind, she definitely has it already made up. There's no changing it, and that's fine. We need more strong-willed people like that. So that's Katie. Number 5 would be she's very logical. So she definitely thinks everything through and has a certain mindset and knows what she's gonna do. And yeah, I think these are all just great qualities that would make Katie different, and she's a great friend.
What makes Katie unique is that she never overthinks and doesn't let emotions get in the way of making decisions. So she's a great person to turn to when you have a problem and you're trying to figure it out. And she's a perfectionist, especially since she's creative with photography and graphic design and other things like that. She always strives to learn more about these interests and tries to improve and goes out for new things to build up her resume and her experience. She's very goal-oriented, driven, and hardworking, and you can see that in both her academics and her hobbies and photography and skills like that.
So what makes you different? I'd say one thing is the precision that you work with, an eye for detail, and you can see minute little nuances that nobody else can see. Just have an eye for that. You have a really good ability to explain things, difficult concepts or step-by-step procedures, making arguments to where it's very logical, sequential, not a lot of extra fluff, and you do it in a way where people can understand it. You have an intrinsic motivation to teach yourself, whether it's swimming or photo editing, or it just doesn't matter. If there's something that you want to figure out, you're going to find a way and you're going to learn, and you don't necessarily need someone else to teach it to you. As far as emotions go, very stable, steady. You're not easily rattled. Part of something that goes along with that is your sense of humor. You really appreciate laughter and humor, and that goes a long way to help diffuse some situations and make life enjoyable.
Katie Stewart, she is one of my best friends. She is very simple. She is the type of person to choose something and she perfects it. So she's not scatterbrained or anything. She keeps it very simple. With her friends, she's got 5 on her hand, and she stays close with each person instead of staying distant with a lot. When she gets on her work, she picks one thing and she perfects it. So she's very creative, colorful in her ideas, and she's awesome at what she does. She's a very hard worker, and she doesn't slack on anything, so she does her best on anything, and it always turns out perfect.
Hey, this is Steve Stewart, and I'm Catherine Stewart, Katie Stewart's dad. So I'm recording this video about her knowledge, skills, and emotions. So I'll see if I can talk for a moment first about her knowledge. I think that she's in general very, very bright. She's a Gator after all, but she has some specialized knowledge about a few things in particular. She has specialized knowledge about design in general, but beyond that, getting a little more specific into that. Colors, things about production of design. So how to use software, how to use photography. And so it goes beyond just the aesthetics, like color palettes and things like that, shapes and how they work. But she has some technical knowledge about the production of that. And she's got pretty good knowledge with regard to her gut, following her gut, trusting her gut. And I'm calling that kind of knowledge, but really it's more of emotional intelligence. She's pretty good about reading other people and pretty good about reading herself. Sometimes, maybe she's 19, so sometimes the regulation part isn't necessarily always there, but she definitely has an awareness of other people's emotions. She can pick up on things, so she's very acutely aware of her surroundings, what's going on around her. So I think that's a knowledge. It's also a skill. She's got a lot of knowledge about like spatial orientation, how things fit and how things don't fit, design, color, shapes, and things like that, how things look. Again, it goes beyond aesthetic. It goes more into a technical sense of where things belong and why they belong there. So that lends itself pretty well to an interest in kind of design and advertising. She's learning more and more knowledge about kind of the psychology of that, buyer psychology, consumer psychology, advertising psychology. So she knows a lot about that. In general, she knows a lot about things that she gets very interested in, kind of immerses herself. Both my kids do that, and immerse themselves in learning, kind of deep learning about what is things that they're very, very interested in. Interestingly, I think she's showing a little bit more interest in kind of the commercial side of things. She was raised in a capitalist, commerce-focused family. I'm an entrepreneurship professor, and she's always been raised up hearing, how do you apply that to generating value? How do you find a customer segment? How do you communicate that to them? Those kinds of things. And she has gotten better at it. She kind of resisted that a little bit in high school, and she was doing great photography, the best photography they had seen in their school, like in their yearbook and things. Everybody wanted her to take prom pictures, but she wouldn't charge them much, just charge them a little bit. And we would have some enthusiastic discussions about that from time to time. She's growing in her appreciation of understanding how things work commercially, and I think that that's helping her out a lot. But other than that, she's very knowledgeable about a variety of subjects, and she tends to be a very quick learner, which is a skill, and pick things up very, very quickly. With regards to skills, and some of these kind of came from what I just mentioned: photography, an eye for color, design, shape, aesthetic. But in addition to that, I think that some of the skills that she has to do with leadership skills. She's learning that, maturing that, honing that, and she's aware of actively needing to continue to shape that. And she has since her freshman year of high school, and she was kind of abruptly put on the varsity volleyball team and had to take a leadership position there. And so she really, really started growing fast in that regard. And so she's very competitive. She's sometimes a bit hyper competitive. And that's one thing I notice about her skills, is that they tend to be her greatest strengths and sometimes her greatest opportunity for growth. I worded that carefully. So I think that she is very competitive, which is great. She's got a very competitive and ambitious drive, and that's fantastic. The flip side of that is sometimes you can become a little too perfectionistic in that competitiveness and let yourself down too much and feel down too much about it. And I'm not always sure that that's necessarily the healthiest way to be. She's very resolute, which lends itself to leadership. She's capable of making a decision and taking a stand and not backing down. She doesn't back down much at all. The flip side of that is that can be stubbornness sometimes, and that means it takes a little longer sometimes for her to come off of a position that even she knows she needs to come off of. So her greatest strengths, and abilities become kind of her, at times, greatest weaknesses too. In addition to the aesthetic and the design and the color and the space and all those things, she has those abilities as well. She's a high performer, very, very high performer. She puts a lot of pressure on herself for that, at times a bit too much. So, and as one of her abilities is learning. She's a good learner. She knows how to teach herself. She knows how to go find information she wants and how to apply that information and how to use it. And I think she's even getting better at teaching. I think she's got friends of hers that are interested in some of the things she does, and they ask her, would you teach me how to do that? And I think she's getting even better at learning how to do that too. So that's kind of exciting. In addition to that, I mentioned this earlier, she's a good read. It's not just being vigilant. She's a good read, second guessing what someone's intentions are, if someone's being authentic or not. I think that will serve her quite well, especially as she kind of matures into that. With regards to emotions, she can grin and bear it quite a bit. She's got a lot of emotional strength that way. At the same time, I think that when she does get a little over the top in terms of getting frustrated or angry, it's way up there. So she can get that way, but that's consistent with being competitive, right? You know, she's driven, she's competitive, she's resolute, all those kinds of things, which are fantastic. But on the emotional side of things, if they go past a certain threshold, they kind of become a little bound up. So there's that. Other than that, she's empathetic. So she's able, again, that goes along with reading people. She's able to kind of read people well and pick up on those things, and can be some kind of stubborn. So other than that, she's very good-hearted. She laughs more than probably any individual I know. Very funny, appreciates a lot of humor, and that just kind of brightens her heart up, which is good when you're also hyper competitive and sometimes tightly wound by that. So she has both those things together at the same time. Loves laughing, loves a fun environment, and loves her friends. So that's what I have to say about knowledge, abilities, and emotions. I probably missed a lot, but I'm on a deadline. She just texted me and said I got to send it. So